Welcome to the Good News from the Gardens podcast. I am Pastor Steve Windsor of Nativity Lutheran Church and School in Palm Beach Gardens, Florida. Each week, I will be sharing a message grounded in faith, hope, and love of God from our Sunday worship service right here via this podcast. I hope you consider subscribing and sharing this message with others. Thank you for listening. Now this week's biblical reading and message. Jesus went on with his disciples to the villages of Caesarea Philippi. And on the way he asked his disciples, "Who do people say that I am?" And they answered him, "John the Baptist, and others Elijah, and still others one of the prophets." He asked them, "But who do you say that I am?" Peter answered him, "You are the Messiah." And he sternly ordered them not to tell anyone about him. Then he began to teach them that the Son of Man must undergo great suffering and be rejected by the elders, the chief priests, and the scribes, and be killed, and after 3 days rise again. And he said all this quite openly. And Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. But turning and looking at his disciples, he rebuked Peter and said, "Get behind me, Satan, for you are setting your mind not on divine things, but on human things." He called the crowd with his disciples and said to them, "If any want to become my followers, let them deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. For those who want to save their life will lose it, and those who lose their life for my sake and for the sake of the gospel will save it. For what will it profit them to gain the whole world and forfeit their life? Indeed, what can they give in return for their life? Those who are ashamed of me and of my words in this adulterous and sinful generation, of them the Son of Man will also be ashamed when he comes in the glory of his Father with the holy angels." The gospel of our Lord. Language creates reality. The things that we say and we convey to one another create our living reality. The information that we choose to believe in or not matters. Both facts and truths that we choose to repeat or not matter. But at the root of everything we say is the question of whether or not it advances life. Does it promote well-being? Does it advance unity? Will what you say help to continue a conversation of understanding? Language creates reality. The things we say and convey matter. When we speak, are we speaking from a divine or a holy mindset or an earthly one? When you wake up in the morning and you look at the person next to you, how do you greet them? It's important. If it's a person that's lying right next to you, if you greet them with a smile and a loving nod, a peck on the cheek, something good, not that their breath stinks, or that they need to wash their face, or that you need to get going, you're going to be late. But begin the day with kind words. It creates the culture for the rest of their day. On social media, there's this young man who's a teacher. Can't be more than 20, 25 years old, 25, let's say. And he begins this day with each kid that comes into his classroom. He's down on his knees, I should say, meets every kid eye to eye, and has an affirming comment for them, telling them how smart they are. He encourages them for what they're going to learn today. He lets them know that this is what's coming today, and you're going to do a good job because I believe in you. And he does this with each and every child, all 20, 25 of them. We have all seen and heard the undressing of someone, the name calling of someone, the unproductive conversations between people. But we know that there is a better way if we but choose holy and divine speech. Language creates reality, and language is everything. So in our gospel, we hear Jesus say, "Who do people say that I am?" Jesus wants to know what his followers are hearing. What is the scuttlebutt out on the street? What is the reality of what is being said about Jesus? He wants to know. Jesus wants to know if those who he is teaching are paying attention to how his identity is being absorbed out there in the world by the masses. How are they being seen and understood as followers of him? Jesus is checking to see if his missional identity, that being sent by God, is being interpreted correctly. So they answered him. Some say John the Baptist, and others say Elijah, and still others, one of the other prophets, Jesus. The people are close. Jesus' teaching and miraculous healing have not quite added up yet for those who are a relationship removed from not just knowing of Jesus, but truly knowing Jesus. Jesus wants to know more. So he drills down on how he is being perceived. Perhaps Jesus' mistaken identity as being John the Baptist or Elijah or others is because Jesus' inner circle, his disciples, still seem to be a little bit foggy on who he is as well. So he asks them, "But I want to know, who do you say that I am? Because who you say that I am reflects on who I am. Do you know who I really am?" He wants to know what kind of language they're engaging in. To which Peter replies, "Well, you are the Messiah. You are the Messiah." Which would mean that he is telling the masses, he and the rest of the disciples, that Jesus is the Messiah, the chosen one. That they are sharing that truth. So this quiz would seem to be over. Peter has correctly named Jesus' identity. He is the anointed one, Messiah meaning anointed one. That he's not a military king of the Jews that was long awaited and expected, but he is a different kind of freedom fighter. And again, Jesus tells them to tell no one about him. And this messianic secret of not telling, it is a little bit baffling, isn't it? We have always been told to go tell it on the mountain and to share the good news. So the fact that Jesus tells his followers on more than one occasion, mums the word on who he is a little bit perplexing. Maybe at this point in Jesus' ministry, his cover being fully blown would have impeded his mission. Maybe at this point it was better that he kept everyone on their toes. A good buzz creates intrigue and curiosity. Maybe this was God's marketing plan. And when the time is right, it will all come together. This second bit of information Jesus has for his disciples is the reason for Jesus being here on earth. He is God's mission and love to the world, the one who has come to take away the sin of the world. And very openly, Jesus goes on to tell them that he must undergo great suffering, be rejected by the elders, the chief priests, and the scribes, be killed, but after 3 days, he will rise again. Well, our brother Peter is not having it. He is not having it. No, Jesus. We hear that he rebukes him. What all could Peter have said in this rebuke of Jesus? We could put a little bit of meat on those bones of rebuke and say that Peter said something to the effect of, "Jesus, you've got it all wrong. That is crazy. that you must suffer? Well, just don't offend the priests and the elders and the scribes. And why would you say such crazy and radical things, Jesus? Rise from the dead? Nonsense, Jesus. Your vision of how this movement, this mission seems doomed going forward. It's unappealing, Jesus. It is repelling. This is not how a good startup gets started, Jesus. Knowing that Jesus is an excellent listener, I bet he fully listened to Peter as Peter let him have it. We don't know how long Jesus heard Peter out, but it doesn't really matter because Jesus makes it abundantly clear that there is a clear divide between what Peter thinks and feels and what Jesus knows as the oncoming truth. The clarity of Jesus' mission and vision is front and center, and it offends and it scares. Now, Peter very likely believes that he spoke divinely. He very likely believes he has been in line with Jesus' leadership. But this truth of Jesus, sacrificial death, can become a fact very easily if he so wills it. And Peter, understandably, does not want that will to be done. So Jesus calls it as he hears it and says, "Get behind me." Calls him Satan. For he's not sending his mind on those divine things, but is sending his mind on human things, earthly things. Seems kind of harsh, seems a bit over the top. But if we consider this, the last time Jesus spoke these words, he was addressing Satan himself in the wilderness while fasting and praying for 40 days. But again, Jesus is drilling down. He knows how his earthly days are about to play out, and he will not be deterred. Two important points of any kind of leadership is that leaders are charged with establishing the primary purpose for why an organization or a company exists. And second, that vision needs to be specific and it needs to be measurable. Jesus knows why he exists. He knows the primary purpose for why he is here on earth. His detailed vision of how he will live into his mission is specific, and it is measurable by way of his disciples and how willing they are to speak the truth about Jesus, that he has come to take away the sins of the world by way of his death. He will suffer, he will be rejected, and he will die. And lastly, be resurrected 3 days later. That is the recipe for God's success in and through him that Peter has taken great exception to, and Jesus' exception to his reaction. But in the midst of this not understanding, there is grace. There is grace. Because Jesus does not dismiss Peter altogether. He does not tell him to leave, be gone with you. He says, "Get behind me." And what happens when Peter gets behind Jesus? He's following him now. He's looking over his shoulder. He's watching what Jesus does. He's listening to what Jesus is saying. And he's going to speak what Jesus speaks. Divine things for us earthly beings. Peter the disciple, the man who will continue to blunder his way, he will be the leader of Christ's church. A good vision will either rally or repel people. And again, Jesus drills down on the reality of his mission. And he says, if any of you want to become my followers, to get behind me, you need to deny yourself. You need to take up your cross, take up that sin, and follow me. For those who want to save their life will lose it. And those who lose their life for my sake and for the sake of the gospel will save it. Jesus invites everyone into God's mission. He invites everyone into the vision of how God's love for the world will play out. Deny yourself, take up your cross, and follow Jesus. To lose your life for his sake and the sake of the gospel is to truly gain life. It is to set your mind on divine things. We are leaders, all of us, in God's mission. Despite our stumbles and at times sharp tongues such as Peter's, Jesus calls upon us too to get behind him, along with our sin, and to move forward in grace. Who do you say that Jesus is? For if you say that Jesus is Lord, then what follows from your mouth is life-giving truths. What kind of reality do you wish to cultivate for each and every one of us to live in? How might you speak the reality of God's love for us in Jesus Christ? How might you speak the reality of the resurrection into a broken world? We begin with speaking the language of love and not judgment, the language of acceptance over tolerance, a language of inclusion and not exclusion. For what if we said, yes, I can feed you. Yes, I can clothe you. Yes, you can live here. What if we practiced radical hospitality and opened our doors wide all the time? What if we were radical in our giving of our spiritual selves to one another? What if we were radical in giving of our monetary resources to God's kingdom? What if we just said yes in all its various opportunities that presented themselves to us? Opportunities to be God's grace, opportunities to speak the truth of his love for us through Jesus Christ. What if we spoke boldly for the one that went to the cross so boldly for us? That is divine. That is gaining life now and forever after. For the sake of God, for the sake of the cross of Jesus Christ, for the sake of you, me, and neighbors, may we speak and be the reality of Christ alive. Let us nurture that. Amen. Thanks for listening. I hope this week's message has given you something life-giving to think about and given you hope that you are loved by God. To learn more about Nativity Lutheran Church and School, search PB Nativity on Facebook or visit our website at nativitylutheranpbg.com. If you would like to support this podcast or any of the ministries of Nativity, please visit our website giving page. Thanks again for tuning into this week's The Good News from the Gardens podcast. Till next week, love God and love God's people.